Hi, Mike Senna here, and today I want to show you how to install a resin or metal arm into your wood frame. My pivot point on this arm has a 1/4 inch hole, so I have a 1/4 inch stock piece of metal here. So you want to cut your piece of metal rod to fit the pivot point of what arm you're installing. So this piece of metal has to fit between here. Second thing you want to do is go ahead and insert the metal rod and put some glue around there. And go ahead and push that in there. So, got it sort of there. And it really doesn't matter at this point where it's located on this, because you're going to align it right now. So you're just going to take that arm and put it into your frame. And you're going to pull your arm up or down and just kind of line it up. Doesn't matter. You can line it up with here and make it touch there even. The important part is to get this part of the arm flush with that. And also up and down in the center. So that looks good too. That looks good as a place where we can wait for that to dry or wait for it to cure if you're using epoxy. But we'll wait for that to set up. So after this is dried, you can tape it into the exact position where you want this to be. And you can use a little piece of straight flat stock of something and make sure your arm's flush. Mainly it's right here that matters for right now, and your spacing looks fine right here. I'm gonna then go into this position right here and look at where that pin hits this frame. I just put a mark there just for the heck of it, but I also just used this piece of scrap to like transfer kind of where that is. And what am I going to use that for? I just have a 1/4 inch of MDF that I approximated where that hole is going to be, but I drew this box around here. What the object is right here is I want this to be cut and cut this hole in half and cut this piece out, and you'll see why. So I have my piece of MDF cut out here. You notice this curved part of it? The curved part of it is going to go up against the skin inside this section of the arm. So you can curve that really perfectly by just taking your back panel, putting it, piece of sandpaper on it, and then just sanding it to the curve of the panel. That'll give you a nice curve. So you're going to take this piece anyway, you're going to take your arm out. And you're going to place that curved piece inside here. And that's going to be the first half of what's going to hold your arm in. So your arm will go in just like this, rest against there. Now you want to check the thickness, the depth of that by just taking your piece, or by checking the outside here. I think that looks pretty good. So I don't really need to take, well, maybe I'll take a little more off, but you see what the idea is. Shave off the back. Of this piece until when it comes up and pushes against the skin, this piece is nicely lined up how you want it against the skin. So I went ahead and made a second one when I adjusted it to the right distance. And I tested both on the bottom post inside the frame to make sure the distance was correct that I wanted. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue one of these in. The first one in here. I'm going to press it in there and approximate where it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to use the arm to adjust it to where exactly I want it. So the arm, you can use the arm to push that block of wood either this way or that way, depending on where your arm is located in your R2 body. And that's where I like it, so I don't have to have the arm in there while this is drying. But you see how you don't need any real measurements. The block of wood is against the skin and it's formed against it, so you can press it as far as you want in this way. You'll always end up in the same spot as far as backwards and forwards. The right and left side, when you put your arm in there, the pivot point will rest in there, and you can push it either backwards and forwards. And once you get in the right position, you just take this out, and then you'll have your bottom piece in. So once that dries a little bit, then I'll go ahead and glue the top one in, and then adjust the arm again. So what I'm going to do now is glue the upper piece. So I cut this a little long on this side because when I glue this up and I put this arm into that position, I'll have somewhere to hold this up while I make the adjustments. So this, of course, will go up against the skin. I don't need adjustment that way. The only adjustment is when I put this in, I'll be able to move this up and down to get it completely centered. So I'm going to put some glue on this.
I can't see.
Okay, so I can hold it up against here. I'm going to come in the front. So now this can be adjusted. I can tilt I can press I'm pressing on the opposite side of this going forward, so that it's seating inside of the half circle. And now I can push this arm up and down. That'll just shift it slightly this way. And I'm paying attention to the gap here. But once I have that positioned happily where I want it, I will leave it there and I'll push the arm out. And now I have both of these pivot points in the correct location, ready for the final step. So for the last piece of this is just a piece of angled aluminum. This is a number 4 screw. It's drilled first since this is into plywood. Won't crack the plywood. You don't want to crack it. This is a 1 by 1 inch by 1 inch. And you can see it's not laying flat, but it doesn't matter as long as it's pushing onto this and pushing into that half circle socket that you had made previously and glued in there. So as you tighten this screw, it's just going to push on there, and you want to just tighten that screw until this bracket is snug. Here's a piece of 1 by 1 that I was using, so I just put it up against a rib and marked a line. So I'm going to cut this part off and then drill a hole right here, and then that's it. I'm just going to leave it this length and it'll just sit in there kind of canted. But then you'll have an arm that can move pretty well. You can attach things on the back here too. I'm not covering how to animate this, but you can drill the back of your arm to put a post there, so you can put a servo link to animate this coming out and in. And I guess one last thing, or two last things maybe, this piece of MDF can go and be glued to the top of here. So when this closes, it will hit that and stay, and everything will be flush. And the second thing I want to let you know is this top one. I don't know if you can see it. You see this top piece is super thin, and it's also MDF. So what you can do here for your little bracket is just glue another little piece of maybe 1/2 inch plywood up on top here, just a little piece. So when your bracket goes in there, you can drill into the plywood and the MDF. So that's the way I do my arms for R2, and works out every time, and it keeps the arm centered in the socket. Hope this helps.